I've got an interesting one for you from Michael Snyder at the economiccollapseblog.com website. It is literally rapid fire with the stuff that is just coming out of everywhere that is saying we are overdue for collapse, economic reset. I mean, everything. And I'm not just choosing all of a sudden to go and try to find these articles to read you. These are new articles, no older than 2-3 days old. Why is it rapid fire all of a sudden? I think because people are really seeing the signs and understanding, again, we're all being lied to. The real data is showing up. This one closing stores, JCPenney closing stores, all this other crap, man. March 2017, which I think he is going to talk a bit about the kick the can down the road debt ceiling, possibly. The end of a 100-year global debt super cycle is way overdue. Of course, that doesn't mean it has to happen in 2017. It's just overdue. And I think you and I know I do. I'm going to assume you do too, know this. He says, for more than 100 years, global debt levels have been rising, and now we are potentially facing the greatest debt crisis in all of human history. Never before have we seen such a level of debt saturation all over the planet. And pretty much everyone understands that this is going to end very, very badly at some point. The only real question is when it will happen. Many believe that the current global debt supercycle began when the Federal Reserve was established in 1913. Central banks are designed to create debt, and since 1913, the U.S. national debt has gotten more than to be 6,800 times larger. But of course, it's not just the United States that is in this sort of predicament. At this point, more than 99% of the population of the entire planet lives in a nation that has a debt-creating central bank. And as a result, the whole world is drowning in debt. And yes, all these central banks follow the same rules. Fractional reserve lending, you borrow money, the governments have to borrow money from you into existence. I've said this a million times. If you have a dollar bill that you borrowed into existence, you have to create, as a government, a bond worth $1. Someone buys the bond, you get your dollar from the Federal Reserve or central bank. But there's a problem. You owe that person interest on that bond for a little while, and then when it expires, you owe them the full amount back. But just to make this simple, you owe $1 and some change in interest on the original dollar. But the first dollar, which was created for you to borrowed for you to use, had the interest. So how do you pay the interest back? I got to borrow another dollar to pay the interest. But now I don't have a full dollar. I've got a partial dollar, 90 something cents worth. But I need full dollars. I need more money. I need more debt. So I need to keep borrowing more. It's a perpetual cycle. You can never get out of this debt unless you default. Unless you pay off all the outstanding people with more issued money from that central bank, while simultaneously telling the central bank, we just wrote some laws in this country, whatever country may be, and that system you used to use is null and void now. We're going to print all the money we need to pay everybody off all at once, and then that system's going away. And a new dollar is coming out, and it may be backed by gold, or it may be, if they do what President Abraham Lincoln did, create the greenback. It was just them printing money with no interest attached. It was never borrowed into existence. Huge difference. And even it wasn't backed by gold, by the way. But it worked, and it helped them win the Civil War. The Union won because of that move alone. And he said, man, it works so good, we're just going to keep this going. We don't need to go back to gold and silver because they were running low. Both North and South were. And people don't work for free, including troops. So he said, we'll just keep doing this. They have the full faith and credit in the thing. If it's backed by the government, everyone's happy. This is good. Next thing you know, his head's blown off. Central bank installed. Have a nice day. Shortly thereafter. When people tell me that things are going to get better in 2017 and beyond, I find it difficult not to roll my eyes. Boy, can I relate to that one. The truth is that the only way we can even continue to maintain our current ridiculously high debt-fueled standard of living is to grow debt at a much faster pace than the economy is growing, which is funny because that's what we've been doing. Global debt to GDP is almost 3 times, debt is almost 3 times to GDP. the ratio, 2.6 or something like that. So basically 2.5 times. We may be able to do that for a brief period of time, but giant financial bubbles like this always end, and we will not be any exception. Barack Obama and his team understood what was happening, and they were able to keep us out of a horrifying economic depression by stealing more than $9 trillion from future generations of Americans and pumping that money into the U.S. economy. As a result, the federal government is now $20 trillion in debt, and that means that the eventual crash is going to be far, far worse than it would have been if we would have lived within our means all this time. That's the key. And what did Lindsey Williams, back when he had the good elite friend before he died, tell Lindsey? That when the whole system goes down, America will be going down. You will be going from first world down to third world, or just down in status. I want to say he said third world, but you're going to be going down in status. He said, we'll recover. It'll take a little while. And when we do recover, and he says, and we will, the standard of living, the lifestyle you've been enjoying all these years and your parents and everybody, you will never get it back to the way it was. You'll have some of your gadgets and these little toys, but you will never have what you used to when all this is said and done. That's what he told them. And that was the guy that was spot on, by the way. Corporations and households have been going into absolutely enormous amounts of debt as well. Corporate debt has approximately doubled since the last financial crisis, and U.S. consumers are now more than $12 trillion in debt. So let's talk about that one. Why are corporations approximately twice or doubled, again, their debt? Why did it double? Because we had near 0% interest rates, and all these big corporations said, let's go borrow a ton of money. It's almost free. And we'll use that money to do stock buybacks and everything else so that when our stocks are up and looking great and a lot of people want to sell out, which would normally push the stocks down, we'll be there to scoop them up with the debt money we borrowed. So to push the market even higher, we'll buy every bit of it. But again, how long can that last? It can only last until you run out of that money, but now you owe it still. You still, whether you had high interest on it or not, 0.25 or 0.5%, doesn't matter. You now have to pay that back. And you burn through it buying all these stock buybacks. Right, so that's another issue that's going to be coming to roost. When you add all forms of debt together, America's debt to GDP ratio is now about 352%. I think that the following illustration does a pretty good job of showing how absolutely insane it is. Let me see if I can pull that up. He must have got the wrong link because it won't come up. But he's got a piece of it. If your brother earns $100,000 in annual income and borrowed $10,000 on his credit card, he could consume $110,000 worth of stuff. In this example, his debt to his personal GDP is just 10%. But what if he could get more credit year after year and reached a point where his total debt reached $352,000, but his income remained the same, $100K? His personal debt to GDP ratio would now be 352%. Again, guys, this is just simple math. It's just simple math. This is a mathematical certainty. As Bill Holter said, as everything I've freaking read for the last several years has been saying, this is a mathematical certainty. Period. But Trump's going to... Period. The United States is certainly not alone in this regard. When you look all over the industrialized world, excuse me, you see similar triple-digit debt to GDP figures. And again, when you add the whole world, and it's about 2.6 or 260%, you could say, that is massively unsustainable and will come crumbling down at some point too. So again, it's not just us, it's not just America, it's the whole flipping world. They all have central banks. They all print money backed by nothing. And they're all going to pay the price. We are not going to be immune to this. When this current debt supercycle ultimately ends, it's not going to create, it is, let me rephrase that. It is going to create economic pain on a scale that will be unlike anything that we've ever seen before. The following comes from King World News. I know you've heard of him before. That is the inevitable consequence of 100 years of credit expansion from virtually nothing to $250 trillion plus global unfunded liabilities of roughly 500 trillion, plus derivatives of 1.5 quadrillion. This is a staggering total of $2.25 quadrillion. Therefore, the question is not what could go wrong, since it's guaranteed that all these liabilities will implode at some point. And when they do, it will bring misery to the world of a magnitude that no one could ever imagine. It is, of course, very difficult to forecast the end of a major cycle, as this is unlikely to be a mere 100-year cycle, but possibly a 2,000-year cycle. It is also impossible to forecast how long the decline will take. Will it be gradual like the Dark Ages, which took 500 years after the fall of the Roman Empire? Or will the fall be much faster this time due to the implosion of the biggest credit bubble in the world history? The latter is more likely, especially since the bubble will become a lot bigger before it implodes. I'll also add, due to how everything happens these days at lightning speed, the recovery should be a lot faster. It should. But even if it's a matter of years or a full year of just absolute horrible conditions, that's enough to really, throw a monkey wrench in your day-to-day plans. And there are certainly lots of signs that a global slowdown is already beginning. For example, global trade growth has fallen below 2% for only the third time since the year 2000. On each of the other occasions, we witnessed a horrible recession take place. For more signs that economic conditions are deteriorating, please see my previous article entitled Recession 2017, Things Are Happening That Usually Never Happen Unless a New Recession is Beginning. I will be linking this article for you. Of course, much of the globe is already in the midst of a horrible economic crisis. Brazil is in the middle of their worst recession ever. And people are literally starving in Venezuela. A new round of debt problems has erupted in Europe, with Greece, Portugal, and Italy, being the latest flashpoints. Just like in 2007, many are mocking the idea that a major economic downturn is coming to the United States. They believe that the ridiculously high stock market valuations of today can stick around indefinitely, and they are putting their faith in politicians. Rule number 1, you put your faith in a politician, you are finished. Okay? Pro tip from Jason at 4. But it won't be too long before a new economic crisis begins in America, and the kind of civil unrest that I portray in his article, The Beginning of the End, erupts all across the country. I just don't understand why more people cannot see this. Government debt, corporate debt, and consumer debt have all been growing much, much faster than the overall economy. Can someone please explain to me how that could possibly be sustainable in the long term? Someone that I considered to be a mentor, but that has since passed away, once said that things would seem like they would be getting better for a little while before the next crash comes. And it turned out that he was precisely correct. We are in a season of time when economic conditions have appeared to be getting a little bit better in the United States, and this has blinded so many people to the truth of what is about to happen to us. Now, I had another thing I wanted to read. It was also from him, another article. And again, just to remind you, if everything's good and fine, these kind of things this is a short one, shouldn't be happening. Again, JCPenney and Family Christian stores are the latest retail giants to announce widespread store closings. As you will see below, JCPenney plans to close between 130 and 140 stores, which I told you the other day. We covered that story. But one I didn't catch, and Family Christian store is closing all of their 240 stores. In recent months, the stock market has been absolutely soaring, and so most people have simply assumed that the real economy must be doing well. But that is not the case at all. In fact, the retail apocalypse that I've been documenting for quite some time appears to be gaining momentum. JCPenney is not in as rough a stage or shape as Sears just yet, but it is definitely on a similar trajectory. In the end, they are both headed for bankruptcy. That is why it wasn't too much of a surprise when JCPenney announced that they are getting rid of about 6,000 workers and closing at least 130 stores. Meanwhile, many observers were quite surprised when Family Christian stores decided to fold up shop for good. They were known as the largest Christian retailer on the entire planet, by the way, But after 85 years, they are finally going out of business forever. Remember the Sandlot movie? Forever. 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 Seriously, you know, and I'm chuckling here, but in all seriousness, this is not exactly funny. This is serious. What, you know, if you can't go to the Family Christian store and find a good deal, you know, struggling families would shop at places like that. If they can't make a buck to even keep some of the freaking stores around, boy, oh boy, do we have some problems. My goodness. Another day, another set of stores closed, another mass firing of people, and yet markets, matter of fact, I don't want to misquote myself, haven't actually looked at the market today. Dow Jones Industrial Average. Markets didn't quite rally today. Rallied at one point, and then it kind of came back down 25 points, or 0.12%. S&P 500. S&P 500, how did it? Down 6 points, or 0.26%. And what was the NASDAQ? How's the NASDAQ? Did it gain? What? NASDAQ. What do we got here? Come on, what do we got? Down 36 points, or 0.62%. Am I going to be shocked if markets rally all of a sudden because of some nonsense? No, not at all. Is this the top? Could this be the top? It could be. It could. I don't know for sure. But markets don't seem to care about this kind of information I just read you. Anything else, markets rally. Any good news, markets rally. Any bad news, markets rally. Revision, second revision, 3 revisions in a row on such and such data. Markets don't care. We do nothing but rally. All we do is rally. There should be like a rap song. Someone ought to do a parody rap song. All we do is rally. And just show the Dow Jones, the main indexes or indices rallying. Bad news, rally. United States files for bankruptcy. Markets rally. This is insane. This is not normal. This is not real. This whole thing is an illusion. And I've been trying to tell you. Now, you could argue, yeah, but if we stayed in the market, we'd be making money right now. You know, you're right. You're absolutely right. But I don't want to put my money in something that some entity behind the scenes is pulling strings, and I don't know when they feel like letting it go or letting it rise again and letting it go and crushing me. I'd rather not live in a house where a giant can come along a path and decide, today he's not going to step on my house, but tomorrow he might step on my house and crush me. You know what? I'm going to do the smart thing. I'm not going to put a house above ground. I'm going to go underground, build my house underground, and then laugh at the giant, laugh at the morons who decide to do that. And while I'm underground doing YouTube videos, so to speak, hey, everybody up above ground, listen, there's these giants, they'll step on your house. Oh, that hasn't happened it's since 2008. We're fine. But then the last one happened in 2000. Remember that? Yeah. And then 87. Remember that? Yeah. Guys, it's getting close to giant stomping time, if you will. No, not concerned. Markets rally. Sorry. Precious metals, baby. Precious metals. The day is going to come when $100 and $200 silver is punching you in the mouth. And I'm going to be on here laughing hysterically, like an insane person, laughing hysterically at the insane prices of precious metals, and telling everybody, especially the naysayers, of course, I freaking told you so. I hope you took some advice, whether it was from me or someone else, and you got your precious metals. I'm tired of arguing why the price could go up. In a devaluation scenario of currencies, which is what is going to be a race to the bottom as the currency crisis, get in full swing across the world, it'll be a race to the bottom. For the millionth time, why did the CME Group in November of 2014 change the rules for precious metals, gold and silver only, to put circuit breakers in if the price moves too fast in a certain period of time? I told you before, I'll tell you again, because I love every one of you, and I've got new subscribers every day that may never have heard this. They don't put rules like that in place to save you from getting crushed when the price goes down. They want the price to go down. They want it to get crushed so you stay away from those futures contracts. When the price goes up and they realize a point will come where we won't be able to control it like we used to, we got to be able to cap that, guys. How are we going to do it? We'll put in those circuit breakers. They never did this in the entire history of the COMEX until November 2014. And here we are, 14, 15, 16, 17, 3 years later. And we haven't had to use them even once. What's going on here, up or down price-wise? That's because they're only going to be used when the price starts skyrocketing upwards. So for my new subscribers, in case you haven't heard that, that's exactly how this is going to go. Mark my words. When? I don't know. But they put it in place for a future time. And certainly it can't be too far out in the future if they did it in 2014. They would have expected it coming. You don't do something to say we're going to do this now, put a rule change in place, because in about 10 years from now, we think there could be some serious market volatility in precious metals. No. Oh no. You do it because something's coming much sooner. Take care.